Welcome to the Pillars of Self-Esteem, a deep exploration of true confidence written by Mindful Literary. Most people don't realize this, but self-esteem isn't something you're born with. It's something you're conditioned into, or out of. From the moment we enter this world, we are subtly taught how much we are worth, through the words spoken to us, the rules imposed upon us, and the silent expectations of society. And over time, we internalize these messages, mistaking them for our own truth. But what if I told you that most of what you believe about yourself is a lie? What if your struggles with self-doubt, insecurity, and feeling not enough weren't actually your fault, but a byproduct of the system you were raised in? This book isn't about boosting your self-esteem with temporary affirmations or tricks. It's about something much deeper. It's about unraveling the layers of conditioning that have made you forget who you truly are. Through raw storytelling, psychological insights, and powerful exercises, we will dismantle the invisible forces that keep you trapped in self-doubt. We will rebuild your self-worth on a foundation that cannot be shaken, because it isn't based on external approval, success, or perfection. It's based on something far greater, you. So take a deep breath. This is your journey back to yourself. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Self-awareness. Understanding your inner world. Without knowing who you are, how can you truly value yourself? Understanding who you are begins with identifying your core values. These values are the guiding principles that shape your thoughts, actions, and ultimately, your sense of self-worth. Reflecting on what truly matters to you can lead to profound insights. I found it helpful to think about my life experiences and recall moments when I felt genuinely fulfilled. What were the circumstances? Who was around me? These reflections often reveal patterns and can pinpoint the values that resonate the most. For instance, I discovered that connection, growth, and integrity are pillars of my identity. Identifying these values not only clarifies personal priorities, but also serves as a compass when encountering choices. With a clear set of values, I can evaluate situations, identify what aligns with my true self, and understand why certain experiences impact my self-worth. Embracing these values, without the noise of external expectations, is the first step I found essential towards valuing myself authentically. Authenticity plays a significant role in enhancing confidence. When I align my actions and decisions with my core values, I feel a sense of inner strength that is difficult to replicate otherwise. There's something liberating about being true to oneself. It allows me to shed the weight of others' opinions and societal pressures. With this authenticity, I've noticed improvements in my relationships and my ability to express myself. I've learned that confidence isn't just about projecting an image. It's about embracing vulnerability and showing up as my genuine self. Each time I act in accordance with my values, I build a layer of trust with myself. This self-trust fosters a deeper sense of confidence that influences how I approach challenges and opportunities. The journey may not always be easy, and there might be times when I stray from my core values, but recognizing these moments is part of the growth process. Building confidence through authenticity is an ongoing practice, one where each step reinforces my worth and my understanding of who I truly am. Remember to take moments of reflection in your daily life. Ask yourself what really matters to you and how you can stay true to those values each day. This practice can create a foundation of self-acceptance and appreciation that can significantly enhance your sense of self-worth. The trap of false identity. How people confuse social roles, achievements, or opinions with their real selves. Understanding the difference between external and internal identity is crucial for personal growth. External identity encompasses the roles we play in society, the job titles we carry, the accolades we receive, and the expectations set on us by family, friends, and culture. This is how the world sees us, a mosaic of labels that we often feel pressured to live up to. On the other hand, internal identity is the core of who we truly are, filled with our values, beliefs, and authentic feelings that might differ from societal expectations. I often found myself at odds with my external identity, feeling like an imposter in roles that didn't resonate with my internal self. The real challenge lies in untangling these two identities, recognizing how our perceptions can skew our understanding of who we are. By delving deeper into our thoughts and feelings, we can start to peel away the layers that suffocate our true selves and set boundaries with the expectations of others. Labels can be a double-edged sword. While they can offer comfort and a sense of belonging, they often come with a hefty price, the potential diminishment of self-worth. When we allow ourselves to be defined strictly by these external labels, we risk losing sight of our intrinsic value. I can recall a time in my life when I was so wrapped up in my job title and the accolades from my peers that I neglected what truly made me happy. I began to equate my worth with my level of success and the opinions of those around me, leading to a cycle of anxiety and disappointment. It's important to remember that a title does not define you. It's merely a fragment of your journey. We must learn to embrace our multidimensionality. Instead of clinging to labels, it's beneficial to focus on our passions, the joy we find in creativity or kindness, and how we genuinely want to contribute to the world. By doing this, we reclaim our self-worth and step away from the confines of societal labeling. A useful approach to combat the trap of false identity is regular reflection. Take some time to journal about your feelings, your passions, and what truly matters to you, independent of how you perceive others see you. This practice can help restore clarity, allowing you to align your external identity with your internal self, fostering a more authentic and fulfilling life. The power of honest introspection, learning to sit with discomfort and explore the true self. It's easy to fall into the trap of negative self-talk. The inner critic, that voice inside your head that constantly tells you you're not good enough or that you'll never succeed, can be so loud. I remember a time when I was preparing for a public speaking event. Instead of feeling excited, all I could hear was that inner critic saying, "You'll embarrass yourself. No one will care about what you have to say." It made me question my abilities, filling me with anxiety. Acknowledging this voice is the first step toward overcoming it. Rather than ignoring or dismissing it, I learned to confront this inner dialogue. I asked myself where these thoughts were coming from and what evidence I had to support them. This honesty can be uncomfortable, but it's crucial to recognize that these thoughts often stem from past experiences or even societal pressures rather than truth. By addressing this negative self-talk, I began to replace those damaging thoughts with affirmations based on my abilities and past successes. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, but in reality, it can be one of our greatest strengths. When I first approached the concept of vulnerability, huge waves of discomfort washed over me. The idea of sharing my true feelings, fears, and insecurities felt daunting. However, I realized that vulnerability opens the door to deeper self-exploration. Allowing myself to be vulnerable meant facing my true self, flaws and all. In those moments of openness, whether through journaling or sharing thoughts with a trusted friend, I discovered parts of myself that I had long hidden away. Instead of shying away from my fears, I learned to embrace them. I came to understand that my struggles made me relatable and human. When I shared these experiences with others, I not only connected more deeply with them, but also found solace in knowing I wasn't alone. This practice of vulnerability has reshaped my understanding of myself and has made me more resilient. Each time I chose to embrace it, I moved closer to my authentic self. One practical tip to cultivate this process of introspection is to set aside a few minutes each day for reflection. You can write down your thoughts or simply sit quietly with your feelings. Acknowledge the discomfort without judgment and allow yourself to explore it. Over time, this practice can help you build a more compassionate relationship with yourself, making it easier to confront your inner critic and embrace vulnerability. Shadow work, understanding and integrating the parts of yourself you suppress or reject. Understanding my shadow self began with recognizing that the parts of me I often avoid or reject aren't just flaws. They are traits and feelings that I have learned, sometimes painfully, to suppress. It's easy to focus on what society expects us to be, kind, generous, composed, while ignoring the anger, jealousy, or fear that also exist within. These traits hide in the shadows, making themselves known in moments of weakness or intense emotion, often catching me off guard. When I can finally face them, I recognize that they are not evil. They are simply parts of my human experience that demand my attention, even if they seem uncomfortable. The first step is awareness. I started by noticing the emotions and traits that triggered a reaction in me, making me feel defensive or ashamed. Whether it was the jealousy that bubbled up watching a friend succeed or the anger I felt when someone disrespected me, these feelings pointed to my shadow self waiting to be acknowledged. Integrating my shadow has required active effort and an open heart. One critical strategy was to create a safe space for reflection. Journaling became a powerful tool. I wrote down the uncomfortable emotions and characteristics, allowing myself to explore why I felt that way. By naming these traits, I started to lessen their power over me. I reached a point where I could sit down and reflect on my judgments, both of others and myself, and I found that those judgments often reflected the very things I feared or rejected within. Another strategy one embraced was self-compassion. When I felt those shadow traits rising, I treated myself with kindness instead of criticism. I reminded myself that it's okay to feel anger or envy. It makes me human. I also began to consciously express these traits in healthier ways. For instance, when envy arose, I practiced turning it into motivation rather than resentment. Over time, this integration transformed my shadow from a source of shame to an invaluable part of my growth journey, teaching me about resilience and the importance of balance in my emotional landscape. Embracing my shadow ultimately means embracing my whole self. Practical exercise, the mirror test. Asking yourself the hard questions about your true desires and fears. Before diving into the depths of self-reflection, it's vital to create a safe and comfortable space that encourages honesty and openness. This space should be free from distractions, allowing you to focus solely on the dialogue with yourself. Choose a quiet corner in your home, perhaps a cozy spot on your couch or a chair by the window. Keep ambient lighting soft and soothing, which can help to calm your mind. Surround yourself with items that bring you peace, whether it's a favorite book, a soft blanket, or even scented candles. Ensuring that no one will interrupt this process is crucial. It grants you the freedom to explore your deepest thoughts without fear of judgment. Remember, this isn't just a reflection. It's a deep dive into your desires and fears, so give yourself the space to be vulnerable. Once your space is set, it's time to engage in self-inquiry. Start with questions that encourage you to look beyond the surface. Ask yourself what you genuinely want out of life. Are your current goals aligned with your true passions, or have they been molded by external expectations? Consider what success means to you personally. Reflect on your fears as well. What holds you back from pursuing your dreams? Acknowledge these fears as part of your journey instead of obstacles. Take time with each question. Don't rush through them. Write your answers down, allowing them to flow freely. This written reflection not only clarifies your thoughts, but also serves as a tangible reminder of your insights. Trust the process and understand that every revelation is a step toward greater self-awareness. Engaging in this self-reflection is not merely a task, it's an exploration. As you progress through each question, allow yourself to embrace what comes up, whether it's joy, fear, or even confusion. These emotions are important indicators of your true self. Be curious, and give yourself permission to explore ideas that might seem uncomfortable. Remember, the more you understand your desires and fears, the more empowered you become in shaping your life. Carry a notebook with you and jot down thoughts as they arise in the days that follow. This ongoing dialogue with yourself is a key tool in fostering personal growth. Chapter 2. Self-acceptance. Owning your flaws and strengths equally. Why most self-esteem issues stem from conditional self-worth. Most of us wade through life carrying an invisible scale of worth, balancing our decisions, accomplishments, and even our relationships against it. This scale often operates on the principles of conditional self-worth. Here, the belief of our value hinges on external validations, like the approval of friends, the achievements we garner, or the love we receive. Conditional self-worth can feel comforting at times because it offers a clear set of criteria to measure ourselves against. However, it inherently makes us vulnerable, leading to a cycle where our self-esteem ebbs and flows based on circumstances that can be entirely out of our control. In contrast, unconditional self-worth arises from within. It is the unwavering belief that we are valuable simply because we exist. You have intrinsic worth that cannot be diminished by any mistake you make or failure you encounter. Understanding this difference is crucial. When we lean into unconditional self-worth, we liberate ourselves from the chains of comparison and the relentless pursuit of approval. Instead of seeking validation outside, our self-esteem becomes a steadfast anchor, creating a more fulfilling relationship with ourselves and others. Living based on conditional self-worth carries an emotional toll that is all too easy to overlook. I realize now how often my happiness was contingent on achievements or other people's opinions. Each failure or setback felt like a crack in my self-esteem, making joy feel elusive. This way of thinking leads us down a perilous path, where fear of failure becomes paralyzing. We start to shy away from opportunities that challenge us because we equate our worth with our ability to succeed. The irony is that in setting these conditional standards, we limit our potential and rob ourselves of transformative experiences. Embracing unconditional self-worth starts with simple, intentional moments of self-acceptance. It can be as simple as acknowledging your efforts or practicing positive affirmations daily. It's crucial to remind yourself that your value is not a reflection of what you do, but who you are at your core. Breaking free from perfectionism, how the need to be flawless destroys self-esteem. Perfectionism crept into my life quietly, like a fine mist that suddenly thickens into a fog. I didn't recognize it at first, but certain thoughts would resurface, urging me to strive for impossible standards. I would tell myself that I had to be the best in everything, whether it was acing a test, impressing my boss, or presenting the perfect version of myself on social media. Based on these demands, I devised rigid rules for myself, convinced that only flawless performance would earn me any self-worth. The pressure of seeking perfection took a toll on my self-esteem, as every minor mistake sparked an internal fire of self-criticism. It wasn't just about what I could achieve. It felt like my whole identity hinged on my ability to present a polished facade to the world. Realizing how detrimental these perfectionist thoughts were became an eye-opener. I noticed that whenever I missed the mark or felt short in any way, I fell into a deep pit of disappointment and shame. This cycle of harsh self-judgment made it nearly impossible for me to find contentment or stability in my accomplishments. I began to question why I was so harsh on myself, uncovering that my fears were rooted in comparison, validation, and the pursuit of unattainable ideals. It was through this process of recognizing those destructive thoughts that I started to confront the uncomfortable truth. Perfectionism was a wall I built, preventing genuine self-acceptance. Embracing imperfection was not an overnight journey. It required me to shift my perspective dramatically. Instead of viewing flaws as failures, I began to see them as facets of my humanity, crucial to my development. One of the most powerful strategies I adopted was practicing self-compassion. Instead of responding to my mistakes with criticism, I learned to treat myself kindly, just as I would for a friend. This simple act of reframing my inner dialogue nurtured my self-esteem and opened a path to greater acceptance. I also started documenting my experiences, failures and successes alike, in a journal, which reminded me that every stumble was simply a stepping stone toward my goals. Incorporating mindfulness into my daily routine further helped me to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. Taking a few moments each day to be present and acknowledge my thoughts without judgment allowed me to recognize when perfectionist urges crept back in. It took time, but with each small act of self-acceptance, I built resilience against the impulse to strive for an unattainable ideal. I learned that growth thrived in the messiness of life, and embracing who I truly am, flaws and all, was my most authentic journey. A practical tip that helped me immensely was to celebrate even the smallest achievements, understanding that progress often comes from imperfect attempts. The courage to be average. Paradoxically, embracing mediocrity in some areas strengthens self-worth. Success often feels like a heavy crown we wear, burdened by the weight of expectations that society places on us. Every day, we are bombarded with messages glorifying excellence, be it in our careers, relationships, or personal achievements. This relentless pursuit of perfection can make us overlook the simple joys found in being average. I learned this lesson the hard way, realizing that it's okay not to shine brightly in every area of life. Embracing mediocrity doesn't mean giving up. Rather, it allows us to refocus on what genuinely matters. It's crucial to understand that not every aspect of our lives needs to be a hallmark of success. By accepting a more balanced perspective on success, we can cultivate a sense of fulfillment that is not contingent on constant achievement. When we stop measuring ourselves against the impossible standards set by others, we actually open ourselves to experiencing authentic joy and contentment. There is an undeniable freedom that comes from accepting our average selves. For years, I chased accolades that left me drained and dissatisfied. It took time for me to recognize how liberating it is to embrace my ordinary side. When we stop fearing mediocrity, we reduce the internal pressure that often leads to anxiety and self-doubt. Accepting this part of ourselves doesn't mean we settle. Instead, it allows us to quit the exhausting competition and create space to explore what brings us genuine joy. Average can be comforting. It fosters connection, as we learn to relate to others who face the same struggles and imperfections. In allowing ourselves to be average, we invite compassion, both for ourselves and others. This shift could lead to a profound understanding of our self-worth that isn't based solely on achievements. Recognizing that we don't need to be the best to feel valued opens up new avenues for personal growth and strengthens our overall self-esteem. We are not defined by our ranks or accolades, but rather by our authenticity. Shifting our mindset from one of success at all costs to one that embraces average can genuinely change how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Instead of racing up the ladder of success, we can find joy in our daily routines, revel in our relationships, and participate in life without the constant fear of not measuring up. It's a freeing realization that it's perfectly okay to just be normal, to partake in the ordinary, and to reject the pressure to excel. The next time you find yourself caught in a cycle of striving for exceptionalism, take a moment to breathe and appreciate the beauty of being just enough. Remember, there is strength in being average. It can strengthen your sense of self-worth and guide you toward a more satisfying, balanced life. Self-compassion versus self-indulgence. The difference between accepting yourself and making excuses. Self-compassion is often misunderstood as self-pity or indulgence in weakness. In reality, it involves treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a good friend during difficult times. When I first discovered the concept, it was revolutionary. Instead of criticizing myself harshly for my mistakes, I learned to approach them with a gentle heart. This shift in perspective allowed me to embrace my imperfections without judgment. When we practice self-compassion, we acknowledge that suffering is part of the human experience. We realize that we are not alone in our struggles. This realization helps to alleviate feelings of isolation. One of the most important aspects of self-compassion is the act of validating our feelings. Instead of dismissing our pain, we give ourselves permission to feel it, which is incredibly liberating. Self-compassion allows us to heal by nurturing ourselves with understanding and encouragement instead of harshness. While self-compassion is healthy and necessary, it can be easy to confuse it with self-indulgence. Self-indulgence often leads to making excuses for poor behavior or choices. I've found that when I start to prioritize comfort over growth, I can fall into a trap of complacency. For instance, telling myself that it's okay to skip workouts because I deserve a break can feel justified in the moment. However, I need to recognize that self-care is not just about giving in to desires. It's about balancing acceptance with accountability. Understanding the boundary between self-compassion and self-indulgence is critical. Self-compassion encourages growth by allowing us to feel our emotions without being stuck in them, while self-indulgence often keeps us in habitual cycles. When I notice myself making excuses, I pause and ask if I'm avoiding necessary actions for my betterment. This practice helps me stay aware of my choices and motivates me to take responsibility for my growth while still being kind to myself. A practical approach to cultivating self-compassion without falling into self-indulgence is to set clear intentions when practicing self-kindness. It's essential to ask oneself if the comfort being sought is genuinely beneficial or merely a distraction from growth. By being intentional about how we care for ourselves, we can foster a healthy relationship with our own needs and desires, balancing acceptance with a desire for self-improvement. Practical exercise. Writing a self-acceptance letter from your ideal self to your current self. Writing a letter from your ideal self to your current self can be a powerful tool for self-acceptance. Start by envisioning who your ideal self is. What qualities do you possess? What do you love about yourself? Take a moment to picture the version of you who is full of confidence, compassion, and understanding. When you sit down to write, aim for authenticity. Allow yourself to express both the admiration and the encouragement you hold for your current self. Use a warm, gentle tone as if you are reassuring a close friend. Begin your letter by acknowledging the struggles you've faced, recognizing the effort it takes to simply get through each day. This compassionate approach may help soften some of the harsher judgments we often have about ourselves. As you delve into this exercise, you might find that practicing self-compassion becomes easier. By addressing your current self with kindness and understanding, you create space for real acceptance to flourish. Reflecting on your journey allows you to see your past challenges through a different lens, one that prioritizes growth and learning over perfection. Remember, the ideal self is not a distant figure, but a state of being that you can cultivate by treating yourself with respect and care in the present moment. This letter serves not only as a reminder of your strengths and aspirations, but also as an anchor in the ever-changing tide of self-judgment. With this exercise, you strengthen the bridge between who you are now and who you wish to become, fostering a relationship with yourself that is as nurturing as it is honest. For an added layer to this practice, consider revisiting your letter regularly. Each time you read it, give yourself permission to adjust the words, infusing it with new insights and dreams as they arise. This ongoing dialogue with your ideal self can profoundly enhance your journey towards self-acceptance, helping you embrace every aspect of who you are. Chapter 3. Self-Trust, Becoming Your Own Safe Space. The silent damage caused by self-betrayal when you say one thing but do another. Self-betrayal often creeps in quietly, disguised as moments of hesitation or indecision. We promise ourselves to take action, whether that's committing to a new fitness routine, pursuing a passion, or simply making time for self-care. Yet almost inevitably, circumstances arise, and we find ourselves taking that comfortable path of least resistance. Each time I choose to ignore my own commitments, a small part of me diminishes. I start to feel a weight pressing down on my spirit, and it's a heavy kind of silence that lingers. This silence is filled with self-doubt, guilt, and growing disappointment in myself. The emotional toll of not following through is profound. It chips away at our self-esteem, and slowly but surely, we begin to feel like imposters in our own lives, living out a narrative that's disconnected from our true desires. Every time I say one thing but do another, I reinforce a narrative that says my word can't be trusted, not by others, but most importantly, not by myself. This erosion of self-trust creates a ripple effect. I notice how it affects my relationships. Friends and family may not see it on the surface, but I can feel it like a shadow that drapes over every interaction. I hesitate to make plans, fearing I may cancel them. I hold back from expressing my full self, afraid of appearing unreliable. It's in these silent moments of betrayal that I realize the greatest casualty is not just the promised actions I failed to take, but the possibility of fully embracing my life as I desire. Rebuilding trust in myself requires an honest confrontation with these fragile feelings. It starts with acknowledging the harm that self-betrayal causes. I began taking small but significant steps to restore that trust. First, I learned to set realistic commitments, ensuring they align with my true values and capabilities. Instead of overwhelming myself with grand declarations, I began focusing on manageable goals. I reminded myself that even small achievements contribute to a greater sense of integrity. Each time I honored a commitment, whether it was waking up early to meditate or following through on a promise to someone, I felt a strengthening of that trust, like a thread pulling the fractured pieces of my self-image back together. It helped to practice self-compassion during this journey. I realized that sometimes life's unpredictability could throw off my best intentions. Instead of beating myself up for slipping, I learned to forgive those moments, using them as learning opportunities rather than reasons for shame. Journaling became a vital tool. I poured out my thoughts, reflecting on my commitments, my failures, and my successes. As I documented this journey, I could see patterns emerge, helping me understand why I often hesitated to honor my word. Finally, seeking support from trusted friends offered an invaluable perspective. Sharing my commitments with someone else created an additional layer of accountability, one that often pushed me to be more faithful to my own promises. Restoring trust in myself is an ongoing process, requiring patience and persistence. Celebrating even the smallest victories helps solidify this newfound self-integrity. I remind myself regularly that the path to rebuilding my relationship with myself doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be genuine. Therefore, I encourage anyone reading this to reflect on their own commitments, take small actionable steps, and honor the commitments that matter most. This journey isn't only about achieving goals, it's about becoming the person you aspire to be. Why confidence is built through small promises, keeping tiny commitments to yourself daily. Making tiny promises to myself each day has transformed my life in ways I never imagined. These micro-commitments, often overlooked in favor of bigger goals, are the bedrock of self-trust. When I commit to something small, like drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning or taking a short walk during my lunch break, I create a ripple effect of positivity. Each time I keep these tiny promises, no matter how insignificant they may seem, I reinforce my belief in my ability to follow through. This process is crucial because it shows me that I can trust myself. It's easy to set grand resolutions, But the real magic occurs when I break those down into manageable tasks that I can accomplish daily. This foundation of self-trust grows stronger, allowing me to take on larger challenges over time. The key lies in consistency and recognizing that every small victory counts. As I started to embrace the idea of micro-commitments, I found it essential to track my progress. This practice not only showcases my achievements, but also serves to celebrate my efforts. Recognizing these small wins often becomes my daily motivation. For example, when I mark off my daily commitments on a calendar, I experience a surge of pride with each tick. At first, it wasn't easy to notice these little victories, but over time, I learned to appreciate the feeling of accomplishment that comes with even the smallest promises kept. Tracking my progress is like keeping a journal of my growth, and it reminds me that I am on a path towards something greater. Each small achievement builds my confidence, creating a snowball effect that encourages me to tackle more significant goals. Cultivating confidence through small promises is a journey worth taking. I've come to realize that being patient with myself in this process is crucial. The journey to self-confidence is not always linear. Some days, I might fall short of my promises, and that's perfectly okay. Each setback is merely a stepping stone rather than a stopping point. The vital lesson I've learned is to show myself grace and to keep the focus on the cumulative effect of my efforts. A practical tip for anyone looking to build confidence through micro-commitments is to choose one tiny promise to start with. This could be anything from reading a page a day to setting aside 5 minutes for meditation. Whatever it is, commit to it wholeheartedly and track your progress. As you watch yourself succeed in these small commitments, you will find your confidence blossoming in ways you never imagined. Emotional integrity, being honest with yourself even when it's painful. Emotional honesty is at the core of our ability to trust ourselves and those around us. Acknowledging our true feelings, even when they are uncomfortable, creates a solid foundation for genuine connections. When I began to embrace my emotions, I realized that denying them only led to confusion and disconnection. Sometimes, I found myself overwhelmed by sadness, anger, or disappointment, convincing myself that I should be stronger or that those feelings were unjustified. However, each time I allowed myself to truly feel these emotions, regardless of how painful they were, I discovered a sense of clarity that I had been missing. It became clear to me that recognizing my feelings was not about wallowing in them, but rather about validating my experiences. I learned that honesty with myself about my emotions fosters a deep sense of trust within, making it easier to communicate with others. Owning your truth can feel daunting, especially when faced with emotions we prefer to ignore. I developed a few practices for confronting these feelings without judgment. One simple exercise is to set aside time each day to sit in quiet reflection. I found that when I was alone with my thoughts, I could allow the emotions to surface. Writing in a journal became another powerful tool for me, providing a safe space to articulate feelings I often suppressed. I would begin by asking myself open-ended questions like, what am I really feeling today? Or why did that situation upset me? This question-and-answer format allowed me to explore my feelings without critiquing them. Over time, I could respond to my uncomfortable feelings with compassion rather than shame. Practicing non-judgmental awareness became essential for understanding the root of my emotions and made it much easier to react in healthier ways when challenges arose. There's a profound liberation in saying to yourself, "It's okay to feel this way." This acknowledgement becomes a stepping stone on the journey of emotional integrity. Remember, all emotions carry valuable information. Instead of pushing them aside, consider welcoming them as allies on your path to self-discovery. The next time you're confronted with uncomfortable feelings, try naming the emotion and exploring its source. This simple practice can unravel layers of understanding that lead to profound emotional growth. How society trains you to distrust your instincts, undoing external conditioning. We often underestimate the impact that society has on our lives, especially when it comes to our instincts. From a young age, we are bombarded with messages from family, friends, media, and culture that shape the way we think and feel about ourselves and our decisions. These external influences can create a layer of doubt around our instincts, leading us to question our gut feelings. For instance, when I reflect on my own childhood, I remember adults telling me not to trust my reactions if they seemed too strong or too quick. Instead, I learned to seek validation from others, often ignoring that inner voice that knew much better. Over time, this conditioning ingrains itself deeply, making it challenging to distinguish between what we genuinely feel and what we've been taught to believe is right or wrong. It is essential to recognize these patterns, as awareness is the first step toward change. By exploring the messages we received about trust, we can begin to untangle the web of doubt that has been woven over the years. Simply acknowledging this conditioning is powerful. You might find comfort in journaling your experiences, writing down moments when you felt your instinct was telling you something important, only to silence it later due to external pressure. This activity provides a clear picture of how societal conditioning has shaped your trust in yourself. Reclaiming your instincts is a profound journey toward authenticity. The first step is to create space for self-reflection. Start by making a habit of checking in with yourself regularly. Ask simple questions like, "How do I feel about this?" Or "What does my gut say?" This practice helps reestablish a connection with your inner self, allowing you to rediscover those once nurtured instincts. Another useful technique is to engage in mindfulness exercises, such as meditation or deep breathing. These practices help quiet the noise around you, creating an environment where your instincts can flourish unimpeded. Additionally, surround yourself with supportive people who encourage you to trust yourself. Sharing your feelings with those who value your perspective can strengthen your resolve. Whenever you feel that old pattern of seeking external validation creeping back, remind yourself that your instincts are valid and worthy of respect. Engage in small, low-stakes decisions where you rely solely on your intuition, whether it's choosing what to eat or picking up a new hobby. Each time you act based on your instincts, you're reinforcing that trust. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes along the way. Every misstep is a chance to learn and grow. Take the time to celebrate your progress, however small, for every moment you choose to trust yourself is a giant step toward reclaiming who you truly are. To cultivate that inner trust, I found a simple yet effective tip: create a trust jar. Label any container in your home as your trust jar, and for every instinct you choose to act upon, write it down on a piece of paper and place it in the jar. Over time, as you read through these slips of paper, you will see the patterns of your decision-making and the confidence building within you. Practical exercise: the trust ledger. Tracking how often you follow through on what you tell yourself. One of the first steps in establishing your trust ledger is to create a simple system that works for you. Start by taking a piece of paper or opening a digital document. Set up a few columns. One for the commitments you make to yourself, one for the dates, and another for the outcomes. This could include anything from "I will exercise for 30 minutes daily" to "I will read one chapter of a book each night before bed." The key is to be specific with your commitments. Instead of vague promises like "I will eat healthier," opt for concrete goals like "I will include a serving of vegetables in lunch." By quantifying your intentions, it becomes easier to track your follow-through and see patterns emerge. As you navigate your week, whenever you make a commitment to yourself, jot it down in your trust ledger. This simple act of writing reinforces your intention and holds you accountable. Over time, you'll want to review this ledger regularly. Perhaps devote a few minutes each week to reflect on what you've written, marking commitments as fulfilled or unfulfilled, and taking note of what made you successful or what barriers stood in your way. This process not only organizes your thoughts, but also fosters a sense of ownership regarding your commitments, encouraging a pivotal shift in your self-perception. The beauty of maintaining a trust ledger lies in the insights it offers. Once you've gathered a few weeks of data, dive into your entries. Start identifying patterns. Are there specific commitments you follow through on more consistently than others? Perhaps you find that you are great at sticking to personal projects on weekends, but struggle during busy work weeks. By pinpointing these trends, you can learn about your commitments in context. Understanding your patterns allows you to adjust your expectations and plans accordingly, making commitments more manageable. For example, if weekends are your productive time, you might schedule larger tasks or challenging commitments during those days. Moreover, analyzing your trust ledger can help uncover why certain commitments were neglected. Was it a lack of motivation, external distractions, or perhaps unrealistic expectations? This reflection opens doors for growth. You can adjust your future commitments based on what you know about your own rhythms, ultimately fostering a more honest relationship with yourself. Additionally, this exercise cultivates trust. Every commitment you fulfill strengthens your belief in your own integrity. Remember that the way forward is not just better tracking, but also better understanding. With each week, you're not just maintaining a ledger. You're crafting a deeper relationship with your own dreams and aspirations. As you build your trust ledger, remember to celebrate your victories, no matter how small. Each commitment kept is a step toward greater self-trust. Prioritize the commitments that resonate with you and align with your values. This awareness is the cornerstone of genuine self-improvement. It's not about perfection, but rather about progress and understanding what commitments truly matter to you. Embrace the journey, because every entry tells the story of your growth. Chapter 4. Self-respect. Setting boundaries that honor your worth. Why people-pleasing is a self-esteem killer. How over-accommodating erodes self-respect. People-pleasing can often feel like second nature. Initially, it seems harmless, just a way to keep the peace and ensure everyone around us is happy. Yet, over time, I started to notice the subtle ways in which my own needs were being pushed to the farthest corners of my mind. I recall countless instances where I altered my plans to accommodate friends or family, even when it weighed heavily on me. These moments often left me feeling drained and resentful, yet I continued because, in my mind, saying no meant I was unkind or selfish. Recognizing these behaviors requires a degree of honesty with ourselves. I began to pay attention to the physical signs of discomfort, a quiver in my stomach or the tightening of my chest when I'd agree to something I didn't want to do. I realized that people-pleasing isn't just about what we do, it's also about what we don't articulate. Each time I suppressed my own preferences, the strain on my self-respect grew. I wasn't just sacrificing an hour on a weekend, I was giving up my right to feel valued. The recipe for resentment was being prepared with every over-accommodation. Shifting from people-pleasing to a more balanced approach involves practice and patience. I started by setting small boundaries, learning the art of saying no without guilt. Instead of floundering at the thought of disappointing someone, I recognized that I also needed to value my own time and energy. For example, I often found myself overwhelmed with requests for help. So, I made it a rule to assess any new requests against my current commitments and well-being. If I couldn't offer help without jeopardizing my mental health, I learned to confidently decline. Another key strategy was practicing self-advocacy. When discussing plans with others, I began to voice my preferences early on. Rather than waiting until the moment of decision, I expressed what I would enjoy or need, creating an environment where my thoughts mattered just as much as those of others. Additionally, I discovered that when I set these boundaries, it didn't feel like I was compromising my kindness. Instead, it cultivated healthier relationships where both parties felt heard and respected. The real magic lies in understanding that standing up for our own needs doesn't diminish our compassion for others. It enhances it, paving the way for genuine connections based on mutual respect. The next time you find yourself caught in the web of pleasing others, take a moment to pause and ask, "Is this what I truly want?" This simple question can open the door to a healthier relationship with yourself and those around you. The science of boundaries. Why your nervous system needs clear personal limits. Establishing boundaries is essential for mental health and well-being. At first, the idea of setting limits might feel uncomfortable or even selfish, but I've learned that boundaries are necessary for nurturing our emotional health. They act as the invisible lines that protect our inner selves from the external pressures of life. When I finally began to articulate my needs and specify what was acceptable to me, I noticed a profound shift in how I felt mentally and emotionally. The clarity that came with these boundaries helped reduce feelings of overwhelm and anxiety. They provide a framework that allows us to prioritize our own needs without guilt. By maintaining our limits, we foster a greater sense of autonomy and personal integrity. Emotional safety is something I once took for granted until I experienced situations where my boundaries were not respected. It's almost as if I was inviting chaos into my life. Boundaries create a space where mutual respect can flourish. By communicating what I need from others, I found that relationships became more profound and meaningful. My friends and family understand that my limits are not obstacles, but rather guidelines that make our interactions healthier and more respectful. It is in this safe environment that vulnerability blooms, allowing for deeper connections based on honesty and trust. Setting boundaries is not just about saying no to others. It's also about saying yes to myself and affirming what I value. The clearer my boundaries become, the more emotional safety I cultivate, shaping a world where I feel secure in expressing my true self. Consider taking a moment each day to reflect on your own boundaries. Are they clear? Are they respected? Taking time for this introspection can enhance your emotional well-being and help you articulate your needs effectively. It may feel intimidating at first, but the rewards of clarity and respect in your relationships are well worth the effort. The low-level disrespect we tolerate daily, identifying microboundary violations. Every day, we find ourselves navigating a world filled with subtle forms of disrespect known as microaggressions. These are the small, often unintentional comments or actions that can leave us feeling diminished or belittled. For instance, when someone comments on your accent as if they are surprised, or when a colleague interrupts you consistently in meetings, these seemingly minor incidents can accumulate and slowly sap our energy. It's crucial to recognize these behaviors not just as isolated incidents, but as part of a larger pattern of low-level disrespect that many of us endure regularly. Understanding microaggressions means being able to spot them in our interactions, whether they occur in the office, among friends, or even within our families. Once we begin to identify these small yet painful moments, we can start to see how they affect our overall well-being and self-esteem. Once we become aware of microaggressions, the next step is figuring out how to address them. It can be uncomfortable to confront someone about a disrespectful comment, but speaking up is vital for our own mental health. A practical approach is to use I statements that express how the comment or action made you feel, such as, "I felt overlooked when you interrupted me." This method not only communicates your feelings, but often encourages the other person to reflect on their behavior without feeling attacked. Additionally, practicing self-assertion can empower you to claim space in conversations and stand firm against low-level violations. Try to maintain a calm demeanor and focus on the impact of their actions rather than the intention behind them. Allies can be invaluable, so surround yourself with people who recognize these behaviors and support you when addressing them. The more we acknowledge and confront these everyday disrespectful acts, the more we can create an environment of mutual respect and understanding, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. A practical tip is to keep a journal where you record instances of microaggressions you encounter. This not only helps you track patterns of behavior, but can also serve as a reminder that you are not alone in experiencing these violations. By writing about them, you can process your feelings and develop strategies for addressing them in the future. How to say no without guilt, reframing boundaries as a necessity, not selfishness. Learning to say no is one of the most challenging yet necessary skills I've had to develop. The initial discomfort of uttering the word can feel like an uphill battle, especially when it comes to family, friends, or even colleagues. I remember the first time I attempted to refuse an invitation. My heart raced, and my palms felt clammy. I feared disappointing the other person or being misunderstood as uncaring. Over time, I found that saying no doesn't have to be a betrayal of relationships. Instead, it can be an act of self-care. It's okay to prioritize my well-being. Each time I step out of my comfort zone and place a firm boundary, I slowly transform that sense of discomfort into affirmation and empowerment. It's essential to recognize that saying no is not about rejection. It's about preserving your energy for what truly matters. When we overextend ourselves, we risk burnout and resentment. By saying no, I have learned to make space for my own needs, which ultimately allows me to be present and engaged in the commitments I do choose to take on. Every time I practice that uncomfortable art of refusal, I grow stronger and more confident in my choices. Guilt often sneaks in when I assert my boundaries. I used to believe that every no I uttered was a signal that I didn't care or appreciate others. However, I had to fundamentally shift that mindset. I realized that setting boundaries is not a selfish act, but a necessary one for maintaining healthy and sustainable relationships. Instead of viewing my boundaries as walls that isolate me, I began to see them as protective barriers that allow me to engage fully with others when I choose to. Understanding that my needs and feelings are just as important as those of the people around me has been liberating. To reframe that feeling of guilt, I started asking myself essential questions. What do I need right now? And how will saying yes affect my mental health? By focusing on the potential consequences for my well-being instead of worrying about letting someone down, I empower myself to make decisions that serve my best interests. This shift didn't happen overnight. It took practice and self-reflection, but now I embrace my boundaries as vital tools for self-preservation. Every time guilt creeps back in, I remind myself that I'm not just saying no to others, I'm saying yes to myself and my own life. Start viewing each no as an opportunity to say yes to your own needs. This small shift can change everything. Practical exercise, the boundary audit. Identifying where you're sacrificing your self-worth for approval. Assessing where you currently stand in relation to your boundaries is an essential first step in this boundary audit process. Start by setting aside some quiet time for reflection. Grab a notebook or a digital device where you can jot down your thoughts. Begin by considering the various areas of your life: personal, social, professional, and emotional. Ask yourself questions like, where do I feel overwhelmed or resentful? Are there relationships that seem to drain my energy instead of replenish it? Reflect on the moments when you compromise your values or agree to things you don't truly want to do. Write down your feelings honestly. There's no right or wrong answer here, just your truth. This exercise can reveal patterns in your behavior that may not be serving your self-worth. By identifying these patterns, you can pinpoint where you might be sacrificing your own needs for the sake of approval. Creating a plan to strengthen your boundaries is about turning insights into action. Look back at your notes from your audit and identify specific instances where your boundaries were crossed. For each situation, think of a clear and constructive response you could implement next time. This might mean saying no when you want to say yes, or expressing your feelings openly and honestly. Practice these responses in a safe space, whether it's in front of a mirror or with a trusted friend. Feel free to adjust them until they resonate with you. Additionally, consider writing a personal motto or affirmation that encapsulates the power of your boundaries. Repeat it daily to cultivate an empowering mindset that reaffirms your self-worth. Remember that changing established patterns will take time and may be uncomfortable at first, but these small, consistent steps will lead to a deeper respect for yourself in the long run. Whenever you feel hesitant, remind yourself that setting boundaries is not about building walls. It's about creating spaces where your self-worth can thrive. Each time you practice reinforcing your boundaries, picture them as protective walls that don't isolate you but keep negativity at bay, allowing positive and fulfilling connections to flourish. Chapter 5. Self-expression, owning your voice without fear. The fear of being seen, how early experiences silence our true selves. The fear of being seen can feel like a heavy cloak wrapped around us since early childhood. It's often rooted in experiences that teach us to hide rather than express who we truly are. I remember moments from my own childhood where whispers and sidelong glances made me painfully aware of my differences. Each time I faced judgment, whether from peers or authority figures, a little piece of me learned to retreat further into the shadows of my own existence. These experiences create layers of silence, like a thick fog that clouds our true selves, making it difficult to step into the light as we grow older. This fear doesn't just vanish with time. It morphs and embeds itself deep within us. Our past influences how we react in the present. For instance, think about how often we minimize our achievements or downplay our talents. This is not just modesty. It's a learned response, a defense mechanism that keeps us safe from perceived danger. The truth is, these feelings are not solitary. Many people walk a similar path, something I've discovered through countless conversations with others who share this struggle. They, too, feel the sting of criticism and the weight of expectation pressing down on their shoulders. Overcoming the fear of being seen requires a conscious shift in mindset, a deliberate choice to embrace authenticity. One effective strategy is to seek small moments of visibility. Start by sharing a thought or a piece of art that reflects your true self with someone you trust. This could be a vulnerable post on social media, a shared story during a gathering, or even simply speaking up in a meeting. Each time you expose a little more of who you are, it's like peeling away layers of armor you've built around yourself. Through this process, I've found that vulnerability often leads to connection. The more we reveal, the more others relate, and suddenly, we're no longer alone in our fears. Another strategy involves redefining the narrative. Instead of fearing judgment, we can focus on the impact of our authenticity. I remind myself that every time I choose to be seen, I provide others the courage to do the same. Engaging in self-compassion is equally important. Treat yourself with kindness when you feel scared or anxious about being visible. Acknowledge that it's a natural human experience to seek acceptance and that your worth is inherent, regardless of others' opinions. Practice affirmations that reinforce your right to be seen, allowing that inner light to shine through the cracks of self-doubt. Every step taken towards visibility allows us to reclaim our voice and identity. Whether it's through creative expression, meaningful conversations, or simply allowing ourselves to take up space, it's essential to embrace the process. Understanding that this journey unfolds gradually can provide comfort. It's about small victories as much as it is about big revelations. Each act of bravery sends ripples into the world, gradually dissolving the grip of that old fear and healing the wounds of the past. Authenticity versus adaptation. Knowing when to blend in versus when to stand out. Authenticity is often presented as the gold standard in personal expression. It is about being true to oneself, sharing thoughts and feelings that genuinely reflect who you are. In my journey, I discovered that authenticity can mean revealing the messiness of life, embracing both my strengths and my weaknesses. It's like peeling back layers to expose the core of who I am. Yet, embracing authenticity isn't always straightforward. There are moments when societal expectations or the influence of peers might urge me to conform. I've learned to distinguish these moments by practicing self-reflection. Questions like, what do I genuinely feel about this? Or am I speaking my truth? Help me navigate the fine line between acceptance and self-expression. It's powerful to recognize that my voice is unique and that expressing it might encourage others to do the same. Adapting to different environments has its place, often acting as a social lubricant that eases interactions and builds connections. There was a time when I viewed adaptation as losing part of my identity, but I've come to appreciate it differently. Adaptation is not about losing authenticity. It's about finding ways to blend without sacrificing my core beliefs. For instance, when I moved to a new city, the local culture was different, and adjusting to that environment helped me forge meaningful relationships. Understanding when to fit in can provide opportunities, career advancements, friendships, and pathways to new experiences. The real skill lies in balancing authenticity with adaptation, knowing when it is beneficial to stand out boldly and when it is worth it to blend in for the sake of connection. A tip I often remind myself is that it's okay to adapt as long as I stay aware of my values and intentions while doing so. The lies we tell to fit in, how suppressing your true opinions weakens self-esteem. We often navigate our daily lives wearing masks, presenting versions of ourselves that we think others want to see. This act of distortion can be subtle. Sometimes it begins with small white lies, carefully crafted statements that feel harmless in the moment. Perhaps you pretend to agree with a colleague's opinion on a project, even if your insights could improve outcomes. In these moments, you might feel the pressure to conform, fearing rejection or disapproval if you expressed your true feelings. Recognizing these lies is the first step toward restoring our sense of self-worth. As we dive deeper into our interactions, it becomes apparent that these lies are often rooted in fear. The fear of judgment, the fear of alienation, or simply the fear of being misunderstood pushes us to suppress our true opinions. This can lead to a cycle where we lose touch with our authentic voices and beliefs. Over time, the weight of these unspoken truths can erode our self-esteem, leaving us feeling fragmented and inauthentic. To break this cycle, we must first become aware of the lies we weave daily, identifying when we choose to silence our opinions for the sake of convenience or acceptance. The realization itself can be liberating, for it opens the door to a more honest and fulfilling existence. Once we acknowledge the lies we tell ourselves and others, the real journey begins, learning how to reclaim our authentic voices. Practicing the art of telling our truths requires courage. It means gently challenging the norms that dictate when we should speak and what we should say. Start with small spaces where you feel safer expressing your thoughts. It could be sharing your real opinion with a friend or speaking up in a casual group setting. Each time you voice your true thoughts, you reinforce your validity and importance, not just to others, but to yourself. Remember that every time you choose honesty over conformity, you not only strengthen your self-esteem, but also encourage others to do the same. Authenticity is contagious. When others see you standing firm in your truth, it inspires them to embrace their own. By practicing these honest exchanges, you can build a supportive community, reminding one another that differing opinions do not diminish our connections, but rather enrich them. Start by paying attention to your inner dialogue. When faced with a social situation, ask yourself, what do I truly think or feel? This inner inquiry will guide you toward being more genuine in all aspects of your life. With each truthful conversation, you pave the way for a more confident, authentic version of yourself to emerge. Speaking up without seeking validation. expressing yourself with strength, not neediness. Speaking your truth creates a powerful foundation for self-worth. I learned that when I openly expressed my thoughts and feelings, it wasn't just about being heard. It was about validating my own experiences. Each time I shared my perspective, it resonated with strength inside me. This independent expression became a reflection of my values, my beliefs, and ultimately my identity. The more I embraced this practice, the more I realized that my voice matters, not because others approved of it, but because it came from a place of authenticity. With every utterance of my truth, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me, a reminder that I am enough as I am. The journey of self-expression also opened my eyes to the importance of vulnerability. It wasn't easy to share my thoughts without the safety net of validation, but it taught me resilience. I started to understand that my worth isn't tied to how others perceive me. This realization allowed me to speak freely without the burden of neediness. Instead of seeking approval, I began to celebrate my uniqueness. With each shared story and opinion, I nurtured my self-esteem, creating a cycle of growth and validation from within. Detaching from the need for validation was a transformative part of my journey. One strategy one found effective was practicing self-reflection. By taking time to explore my feelings and motivations, I became more aware of when I was seeking approval versus when I was simply sharing my thoughts. Journaling became a safe space for me to express my ideas without judgment, allowing me to embrace my authenticity. Rather than writing for an audience, I wrote for myself, which liberated my voice and filled my pages with genuine expressions of who I am. I also practiced affirmations as a way to reinforce my confidence. Simple statements like "my voice deserves to be heard" became empowering reminders that echoed in my mind. I began to believe that sharing my thoughts wasn't a request for validation. It was an expression of my individuality. This mindset shift allowed me to engage in conversations with an openness that was previously overshadowed by the fear of rejection. By consistently implementing these strategies, I discovered that true empowerment comes from within, and the strength to speak up lies in embracing my own worth, independent of external validation. Practical exercise, the unfiltered truth practice, saying something you truly believe out loud without softening it. To truly embrace the unfiltered truth practice, your environment plays a crucial role. Begin by choosing a space where you feel safe and secure. This could be a quiet room in your home, a park outside, or even a cozy corner in a cafe. The key is to ensure you won't be interrupted. Comfort is vital, so consider lighting a candle, playing soothing background music, or even taking a few deep breaths to center yourself. As you create this sacred space, allow yourself to visualize the freedom that comes from speaking your truth. It's essential to eliminate distractions that may pull you back into self-doubt or fear. When you feel ready, the walls of your practice environment will become a supportive canvas for your most genuine thoughts. Once your environment is set, it's time to vocalize your unfiltered beliefs. Start slowly. You might find it helpful to write down what you want to say, turning vague feelings into concrete words. This process helps in clarifying your thoughts and prepares you for the moment of expression. When you finally speak, do so with conviction. Remember, there's no need to soften your words or apologize for how you feel. Your truth matters. It can be liberating to simply let your beliefs flow. Whether you whisper them to yourself, share them aloud with a trusted friend, or record them, what's important is that you express without filters. Speak as if your voice carries the weight of your experiences, and embrace the vulnerability that comes with revealing who you truly are. Recognize that fears and doubts may attempt to creep in. That's natural. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to state what you believe for yourself and the world around you. To enhance your practice, meet yourself with kindness. After each session, reflect on how you felt while speaking your truth. Journaling about your experience can be powerful. Write down how it felt to express yourself candidly, what thoughts surfaced, and any reactions you had. This reflection will reinforce your commitment to unfiltered expression and help you grow in confidence with each practice. Chapter 6. Self-Evolution. Growing beyond the version of yourself you once were. Why static self-esteem is dangerous. You're not meant to stay the same. Static self-esteem often leads us to believe we can settle into a comfortable version of ourselves and remain there indefinitely. This notion is perilous because stagnation invites complacency. When we fail to challenge ourselves, we miss out on the opportunities that provoke growth. Each moment we resist change, we also resist the potential for our capabilities to evolve. Life is dynamic, constantly presenting us with new experiences, both joyful and challenging, that require adaptation. These opportunities are exactly what shape us. Without the willingness to embrace change, our self-esteem might rest in a fragile state, susceptible to outside influences and external validation. The danger in this is risky. Without a continual process of growth, we might find ourselves unable to cope with life's inevitable challenges. In a world that keeps moving, standing still can result in feelings of inadequacy or even a sense of failure. Embracing change is vital for anyone looking to navigate the complexities of life. Acknowledging that evolution is essential in our journey toward personal development opens doors to richer, more fulfilling experiences. Change might seem daunting, but it is the catalyst for reimagining who we are. When we acknowledge that we are not meant to stay the same, we give ourselves permission to explore new identities, skills, and passions. Each new experience adds layers to our self-worth and can enhance our overall well-being. The act of embracing change transforms our perspective from one of fear to one of curiosity. Rather than feeling trapped by past self-assessments, we learn to view challenges as stepping stones toward our next phase. To thrive, we must cultivate a mindset that values adaptability over static self-image, realizing that our journey is not simply about maintaining self-esteem, but continuously redefining it through growth. A practical tip for this journey is to regularly step outside your comfort zone, setting small, achievable goals that encourage continuous evolution. Embracing the cringe, why your past self will always embarrass you, and why that's a good thing. Cringe moments are an indelible part of our lives. I remember vividly the times when I said something awkward in a gathering or wore a mismatched outfit to an important event. At the moment, I thought I would have given anything to disappear. But looking back, those moments make me laugh. They reveal a truth about our lives. We are all beautifully imperfect. What seems humiliating today often transforms into a charming story that illustrates our growth. It's worth noting that everyone has similar experiences, even those we view as polished and successful. So, instead of burying these moments in embarrassment, we can embrace them. The essence of humor lies in our shared vulnerabilities, and once we acknowledge this, the cringes soften into giggles. Embracing cringeworthy experiences is not merely about accepting our past. It's about harnessing them for future growth. Each embarrassing moment teaches us resilience. We learn to let go of perfectionism and realize that stumbling is part of the journey. This newfound resilience empowers us to face future challenges with confidence. An embarrassing moment can spark self-reflection, prompting us to evaluate our values and actions. It encourages us to be kinder to ourselves, as we recognize that everyone is learning. When we accept our cringe and grow from it, we transform discomfort into strength. A practical way to leverage embarrassment is to reflect on a cringe moment, write down what you learned, and think about how it has shaped who you are today. By reframing our past, we can embrace our stories and walk boldly into the future. Reframing failure as a confidence builder. How mistakes make you trust yourself more, not less. When I look back at the various paths I've traveled, I can't help but appreciate the failures that dotted my journey. Rather than seeing failure as a reason to retreat, I've learned to view it as a valuable teacher. Each misstep offered insights that textbooks never could. The moment I pivoted my perspective, seeing failures as stepping stones rather than roadblocks, everything changed. It felt empowering to embrace the idea that every failure is an opportunity to learn and grow. Instead of feeling defeated, I began to ask myself what I could take away from each experience. What lesson could I extract that would help me in the future? This shift in mindset transformed my relationship with failure into something constructive. It's fascinating how society often views failure with a grimace, almost as if it's contagious. The fear of failure can paralyze us and prevent many from trying at all. But when we reframe that fear, it loses its grip. We can see failures as checkpoints on our journey, markers that indicate where we can improve. As I've shared my experiences with others, I've realized how many beautiful stories of resilience arise from moments of failure. Those who share their stories often find that they were not the only ones on that rocky road. Embracing failure allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, fostering a sense of community. After all, we're all just human beings navigating this complex world, stumbling and learning along the way. With every mistake I made, I noticed a subtle but profound shift in my confidence. Failures, while initially disheartening, became a breath of fresh air in my quest for self-trust. Each time I picked myself back up after stumbling, I reinforced my belief in my ability to handle whatever life threw my way. The more I experienced setbacks, the more I realized that they didn't define me. They simply equipped me with stronger tools for the next challenge. With resilience came a kind of self-reliance I hadn't known before. I began to trust myself not just to succeed, but to learn and adapt in the face of adversity. This became a cycle. The more I trusted myself, the more I was willing to take risks, which inevitably led to more experiences, some of which were failures. Remember that every moment of struggle carries the potential for growth. When you face a setback, take a moment to reflect on what you can learn from it. Each time you rise from a fall, you're not just overcoming a mistake, you're reinforcing your own belief in your ability to thrive. The identity shift technique, letting go of who you think you are to become something greater. To begin your journey of transformation, it's essential to first assess your current identity. This means taking a deep look at who you believe yourself to be. So much of our identity is shaped by our past experiences, relationships, and the stories we've internalized. Think about the labels you use to describe yourself. Are you a student, a parent, an employee? These identifiers can feel solid, yet they are often limiting. As I explored my own identity, I found that many of the beliefs I held about myself were not truly reflective of my potential. They were merely comfort zones I had created over time. I realized that these identities were not fixed, and they didn't have to define my future. Take a moment to reflect on your own thoughts. What do you believe about yourself? Notice the patterns. Write down your thoughts and feelings, and pay attention to any feelings of resistance or reluctance that arise while doing so. These insights can reveal the blocks that keep us from evolving. Understanding how you define yourself is the first step toward shedding those layers and making space for something new. It's about acknowledging that you are more than just a collection of titles and experiences. Once you've taken stock of your current identity, the next step is to embrace the new you. This part of the process is often the most challenging, as it requires letting go of the familiar. Start by consciously choosing to release the identities that no longer serve you. This could be as simple as changing the language you use when you describe yourself. Instead of saying, "I'm not good at public speaking," try, "I am learning to express myself confidently in front of others." This subtle shift in language opens up a world of potential. Next, consider the habits and routines that reinforce your old identity. Are there activities you avoid because they conflict with who you think you are? Challenge yourself to step outside of your comfort zone. Join groups, take classes, or engage in new experiences that reflect the person you wish to become. Surrounding yourself with individuals who inspire you can also dramatically shift your perspective. As you meet new people, you'll begin to collect new stories about who you could be. Creating a vision for your future self can further crystallize this transformation. Visualize who you want to be. What does that person do differently? What mindset do they possess? Create a vision board or a journal where you detail this aspirational identity. Use this vision as a guiding star. Whenever you feel doubt, remind yourself of this new identity and the steps you are taking toward it. The shift might be uncomfortable at first, but with each step, you are crafting a new narrative, one that aligns with your truest potential. Practical tip: each day, set a small intention that aligns with this new identity. Whether it's to speak up more in meetings or to take on a new creative project, these small changes compound into significant shifts over time. Practical exercise: writing a eulogy for your past self to embrace your evolving identity. Writing a eulogy for my past self felt both strange and liberating. It's an invitation to reflect on who I was, to confront the choices I made, and to acknowledge the facets of my identity that served me once but no longer reflect who I have become. In this unique exercise, I discovered that memorializing my past self isn't about mourning lost potential. It's about celebrating the journey of transformation. The act of formulating these thoughts into a eulogy, a speech that honors someone who has passed on, creates a powerful space for release. By articulating my historical experiences, I began to understand the lessons they imparted, painting a clear picture of how I've evolved. The act of writing about my past self forced me to confront mistakes and triumphs alike, allowing me to find closure and appreciation for the struggles that shaped me. In crafting my narrative, I felt the need to honor my past self. I started by recalling moments that defined me. the awkward phases, my fears, and yes, the moments of success. Instead of viewing these memories as distant relics, I invited them into my present dialogue, framing them with compassion. A eulogy can chronicle not only achievements but also the honest truths of failures, vulnerabilities, and dreams that didn't pan out. As I write, I found that these elements form a rich tapestry of identity, which is not static but rather fluid. The past should inform my present while losing its grasp on who I am today. As I poured my heart into this written piece, I was consciously giving myself permission to outgrow certain aspects of my identity while recognizing their importance in my life story. I realized that each version of myself, even the ones I wished to forget, played a role in guiding me toward who I am today and who I aspire to be. This exercise reminded me that embracing change is an ongoing journey, and honoring my past is a crucial step. It's an opportunity to let go of the need to be defined by outdated identities while carrying forward the wisdom they offer. When you embrace this process, you give yourself the freedom to grow without the weight of unprocessed feelings. To make the most of this practice, set the scene for your writing. Find a comfortable space, gather your thoughts, and let your pen flow freely. Think of this eulogy not just as a farewell to the past, but a warm welcome for who you are becoming. Final chapter: the integration of self-worth. How to stop chasing self-esteem and start living it. Self-esteem is often viewed as a product of external validation. We tend to associate our worth with achievements, compliments, and even social media likes. I remember vividly how I would feel buoyed by a positive comment and deflated by a critic's word. This cycle kept me chasing approval, constantly searching beyond myself for affirmation. However, I learned that true self-esteem is an internal experience, anchored in understanding and accepting who we are beyond opinions and accolades. It's not about comparing ourselves to others or reveling in the validation from the outside world. The critical difference lies in understanding that external validation is fleeting and often unreliable. People come and go, and their opinions shift in the blink of an eye. On the contrary, internal self-esteem is about embracing our intrinsic value, recognizing our strengths, and acknowledging our imperfections. When I shifted my focus inward, I discovered that my worth was not tied to my accomplishments, but rather to my character, my kindness, and my resilience. It was here, in this internal landscape, that I began to cultivate a deeper, lasting sense of self-worth that wasn't easily shaken by external factors. Living authentically is about allowing yourself to be genuine and unapologetic in expressing who you are. One of the most impactful changes I made was to develop a daily practice of self-reflection. I began to ask myself tough questions. What do I truly value? What are my passions? This exploration helped ground my self-esteem in authenticity. As I uncovered my true self, I learned to embrace my quirks and imperfections, which only enriched my sense of worth. Finally, practicing gratitude daily has opened my eyes to the beauty within and around me. I've found that taking time to appreciate my unique qualities and the simple joys of life strengthens my internal self-esteem. Shifting focus from what I lack to what I have breeds a sense of abundance that fuels my confidence. The key to truly living your self-esteem lies in this internal acceptance and appreciation, creating a solid foundation to thrive without the need for constant outward approval. The quiet confidence of people who truly value themselves. Quiet confidence often manifests in the subtlety of one's presence. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room, but rather an assuredness that quietly influences those around. Self-valuing individuals tend to exhibit a calm demeanor. They hold themselves with an ease that suggests they are comfortable in their own skin. Their body language speaks volumes: shoulders back, relaxed posture, and a genuine unforced smile. These traits communicate strength without needing to shout for attention. They listen more than they speak, which allows them to engage deeply with others. This ability to listen reflects their self-assurance. They don't feel the need to interrupt or dominate conversations because their value is not dependent on being heard at all times. Instead, they find importance in understanding others, nurturing those relationships, and fostering meaningful connections. This attention to others creates an environment where people feel valued and understood, further enhancing their presence. Embodying quiet confidence starts with self-awareness. Begin by recognizing your worth independent of external validation. A good practice is to take time each day for reflection. Consider writing in a journal about your strengths and accomplishments. Acknowledging your own value helps in building a solid foundation of confidence that isn't reliant on others' opinions. Another strategy is to practice active listening. When you engage with others, focus on understanding their points of view instead of thinking about how you will respond. This helpful shift not only draws out your quiet confidence, but also enriches your interactions, making you feel secure and engaged in conversations. Additionally, consider your body language. Confidence can be conveyed through your physical presence. Standing tall, making eye contact, and exhibiting open gestures can all foster a sense of strength, not just within yourself, but in how others perceive you. Surrounding yourself with supportive individuals is equally crucial. Engage with those who uplift and inspire you. Their encouragement can reinforce your belief in your capabilities. Quiet confidence is not an overnight transformation. It's a journey of self-discovery and growth. One practical tip: set small goals that challenge you but are achievable. Each time you accomplish one, recognize it as a testament to your growing self-value. This practice nurtures the quiet strength within, bolstering your confidence gradually and steadily. How to handle relapses into self-doubt without losing your progress. Self-doubt often sneaks in during moments we least expect it. It's a shadow that follows us on our journey, always lurking when we push ourselves out of our comfort zones. I learned that accepting these feelings as a natural part of growth is crucial. Each setback is not a sign of failure. Instead, it is an opportunity for growth. Just as a seed must face harsh conditions to sprout into a strong plant, we too must navigate our inner storms. When I started framing my struggles with self-doubt this way, I found an incredible shift in my perspective. Rather than feeling defeated, I began to view these moments as essential to my evolution. They served as reminders that I am reaching for something greater, and that in itself is a worthy endeavor. After experiencing a bout of self-doubt, it is vital to practice kindness to ourselves. I remember one particular instance where doubt nearly paralyzed me. I had poured my heart into a project, and the moment I faced criticism, the doubts flooded in. Instead of wallowing in those feelings, I took 2 steps. First, I acknowledged my emotions. I allowed myself to feel disappointed without judgment. Then, I took a step back and reflected on past experiences where I overcame difficulties. This mindset shift brought clarity and reminded me that progress is not linear. It comes with its ups and downs. Finding a small, manageable task to focus on can reignite your momentum. This could be simply journaling about your feelings or taking a brisk walk to clear your mind. These small actions pivot our focus back to the positives and help us rebuild confidence step by step. Each small win builds on the next, gradually reconstructing our self-belief. Recovery from self-doubt doesn't mean erasing it. It's about integrating it into our narrative. When those whispers of doubt come again, which they will, I suggest using them as tools for learning rather than as shackles. By embracing our feelings while also taking proactive steps to move forward, we can continue our journey toward our goals without letting those moments define us. Remember, every experience of self-doubt is a building block toward resilience. The ultimate mindset shift. Realizing self-esteem isn't something you achieve, but something you live. Understanding self-esteem as a fluid aspect of our lives, rather than a fixed achievement, is a profound mindset shift. I remember the years I spent chasing validation. I believed that if I achieved certain milestones, like a promotion at work or a perfect relationship, then I would finally feel good enough. However, as time went on, I realized this was a cyclical trap that led to temporary highs followed by deeper lows whenever I encountered setbacks. The truth is, self-worth isn't dictated by external successes, but is a fundamental part of who we are, waiting to be recognized and nurtured from within. The moment I started to perceive my self-worth as inherent, I discovered a sense of freedom. I stopped measuring my value against arbitrary standards and learned to embrace my own uniqueness. Living in a way that reflects your inherent worth requires consistent practice and intention. One effective way I found to do this is through daily affirmations. When I wake up, I remind myself of my strengths and what I appreciate about myself, even if it feels awkward at first. Over time, these affirmations have cultivated a stronger internal dialogue that counters any negative self-talk that might creep in. Another transformative practice is mindfulness. By staying present and aware of my thoughts and feelings, I can catch myself when I drift into old patterns of judgment and instead choose kindness towards myself. Surrounding myself with supportive people has also played a crucial role. Positive relationships reinforce my sense of worth, making it easier to embrace my true self. This lifestyle of self-worth isn't just a series of activities. It's about developing a nourishing relationship with yourself every single day. To maintain this mindset, consider keeping a gratitude journal. Each evening, jot down a few things you did well or moments you felt proud of. Over time, you will shift from the constant need for external validation to a deep-seated appreciation for your ongoing growth and efforts. This simple practice creates a positive feedback loop that strengthens your self-esteem. Self-esteem isn't something you earn. It isn't something you win after years of proving yourself. It isn't found in achievements, in relationships, or in how others see you. It is something you decide, right here, right now. The work we've done in this book isn't about becoming worthy. It's about realizing you already are. No more chasing validation. No more apologizing for taking up space. No more waiting for permission to be the person you were always meant to be. You are enough. You always have been. Now it's time to live like it. This has been Final Title, written by Mindful Literary. If this book has sparked something inside you, share it. Pass it on. And most importantly, carry this truth forward into your life. Your story is still being written. Make it one worth living.